Here's a fascinating fact about Argentina, the homeland of Lionel Messi. For much of its history, the average Argentine consumed more than 220 pounds of beef every year. To put that into perspective, if a cow yields around 440 pounds of meat after processing, just 2 Argentines could eat nearly an entire cow in a single year. Even today, despite rising prices and economic challenges, Argentines still consume roughly 110 pounds of beef per person annually, placing them among the biggest beef eaters on the planet. Think about that for a moment. The average modern Argentine eats nearly 2 pounds of beef every week after week, year after year. In many countries, beef is considered a luxury food, something reserved for special occasions. And even where it's affordable, people rarely eat it at such extraordinary levels. But in Argentina, beef is what rice is to Vietnam. It's everywhere. It's part of everyday meals, family gatherings, festivals, soccer celebrations, and even the country's national identity. So why do Argentines love beef so much? The answer begins in a very special place called the Pampas. The Pampas is essentially paradise for cattle. Argentina covers nearly 2.8 million square kilometers, making it one of the largest countries in the world. But what makes it truly special isn't its size, it's the quality of its land. At the heart of Argentina lies the Pampas, a vast grassland region that ranks among the most fertile grazing areas on Earth. The land is flat. The climate is mild. Rainfall is plentiful but not excessive, and fresh water is abundant. For cattle, it's about as close to heaven as you can get. If you were ranking the best places in the world to raise cattle, the Pampas would almost certainly be near the top of the list. Farmers here don't need to rely heavily on expensive industrial feed. Cattle simply roam enormous open grasslands and graze on natural pasture day after day. Life is pretty good when you're a cow in Argentina. Thanks to these extraordinary conditions, Argentina developed one of the world's largest cattle populations. At certain points in history, the country had more than 50 million cattle despite having a population of just over 40 million people. In other words, there were times when cows actually outnumbered humans. And when a country has that much beef, prices naturally become more affordable. When something is both delicious and relatively cheap, people tend to eat a lot of it. What's even more interesting is that cattle aren't actually native to Argentina. Before Europeans arrived, there were no massive herds of cattle roaming these lands. Everything changed during the 16th century when Spanish settlers brought a relatively small number of cattle to South America. At first, there were only dozens or perhaps a few hundred animals. No one could have imagined that those cattle would eventually reshape an entire nation's history. Once released onto the vast Pampas grasslands, cattle multiplied at an astonishing rate. They had endless food, few natural predators, and nearly perfect living conditions. Within just a few generations, their numbers exploded into the millions. By the 18th century, enormous wild cattle herds roamed across parts of Argentina. Historical accounts describe landscapes where cattle seemed to be everywhere. Some stories even claim that hunters would sometimes take only the hides and leave the meat behind. Whether every story is true or not, they reveal just how abundant cattle had become. Centuries of abundance transformed beef into a natural part of everyday Argentine life. People grew up eating beef. Their parents ate beef. Their grandparents ate beef. And each generation passed the tradition to the next. Just as the United States has its legendary cowboys, Argentina has the Gauchos. These are the skilled horsemen and cattle herders of the Pampas. They rode horseback across endless grasslands, managed cattle herds, and lived free under open skies. In Argentine culture, Gauchos became national heroes. They are often viewed much like the American cowboy or the Japanese samurai, symbols of independence, courage, and national pride. And naturally, their lives revolved around cattle. They worked with cattle. They earned their living from cattle. And of course, they ate plenty of beef. For centuries, The image of gauchos grilling meat over open fires beneath the vast Pampas sky became one of Argentina's most iconic cultural symbols. Stories, songs, and legends helped turn beef into something much bigger than food. It became part of Argentina's identity, and that identity remains strong today. If you ask an Argentine about the country's most important culinary tradition, many will answer with one word: asado. Technically, asado is more than just a meal. It's a social ritual. On weekends, families gather around charcoal grills while massive cuts of beef slowly cook over open flames. The aroma fills entire neighborhoods. Adults talk and laugh. Children run around. Everyone enjoys spending time together. And at the center of it all is beef. In many countries, meat is simply one dish among many. In Argentina, beef is often the reason people gather in the first place. An asado can last for hours. There's no rush. People eat, talk, relax, and enjoy life. Even Argentina's national soccer team has been known to bring chefs and grilling equipment on trips so they can continue the tradition wherever they go. And there's another reason Argentine beef is famous around the world. It's the way the cattle are raised. Unlike many industrial farming systems, a large percentage of Argentina's cattle spend much of their lives grazing naturally on open grasslands. They walk, they roam, they feed on natural pasture. Many believe this lifestyle contributes significantly to the distinctive flavor of Argentine beef. Combined with the nutrient-rich Pampas grasslands, favorable climate, and cattle breeds, the result is a product that has earned a global reputation for quality. When people have access to some of the world's best beef at relatively affordable prices, it's no surprise they eat a lot of it. In a way, Argentines are like people who live by the ocean and eat seafood every day. The difference is that their ocean happens to be made of cattle. In fact, beef once helped make Argentina one of the richest countries in the world. During the early 20th century, Argentina ranked among the wealthiest economies on Earth. Today, we often think of countries becoming rich through oil. But more than a century ago, Argentina's wealth came from fertile land, wheat, and especially cattle. The invention of refrigerated shipping in the late 19th century changed everything. For the first time, Argentine beef could cross the Atlantic Ocean while remaining fresh. It was a revolution. Cattle raised on the Pampas were processed and shipped to Britain, France, and other European nations. As Europe's population grew and demand for food increased, Argentine beef became highly sought after. Within a few decades, Argentina emerged as one of the largest beef exporters on the planet. The wealth generated by beef and agricultural exports transformed the country. Railroads were built to move cattle from inland regions to ports. Major cities such as Buenos Aires flourished as ships constantly arrived and departed for Europe. Buenos Aires grew so rapidly that it became known as the Paris of South America, famous for its grand boulevards, elegant theaters, and European-style architecture. At one point in the early 20th century, Argentina's income per capita ranked among the highest in the world. For Argentines, cattle were never just livestock. They were an economic engine that helped elevate the nation to remarkable prosperity. That's why many Argentines jokingly say their country has two religions: soccer and beef. Both are everywhere. During major national team matches, countless families gather around grills, cooking beef while watching the game. From the days of Diego Maradona to the era of Lionel Messi, beef has remained deeply intertwined with Argentine soccer culture. It's present in celebrations, conversations, parties, and ordinary weekends alike. So do Argentines still eat as much beef as they once did? Not quite. Compared to historical peaks of more than 220 pounds per person annually, consumption has declined significantly. The primary reason is economic. Years of inflation and rising costs have made beef less affordable than it once was. Many families now consume more chicken and pork to save money. Yet even after that decline, Argentina still ranks among the world's top beef-consuming nations. That alone shows how deeply beef is woven into the country's culture. This isn't merely a dietary preference. It's part of Argentina's national identity. In the end, there are several reasons why Argentines eat more beef than almost anyone else on Earth. Nature played a role. History played a role. Culture played a role. Argentina possesses some of the finest grazing land on the planet. It has long maintained cattle populations that rival or exceed its human population. Its economy was built in part on cattle ranching. It developed the tradition of Asado. It celebrated gauchos as national icons. And over centuries, beef became inseparable from the Argentine way of life. In many countries, people eat beef because they enjoy the taste. In Argentina, people eat beef because it represents their history, culture, and identity. That's why Argentina isn't just one of the world's biggest beef-consuming nations. It may very well be the country that loves beef the most. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video with others. And until next time, thanks for watching.